Happy to introduce my dear friend Karen Kobe, who has come up from a little bit further south today. A dear friend, a internationally renowned naturalist, and this is going to be a fun presentation. So, if you don't mind, just a little bit about your background, Karen.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming up today. My degree is in natural resource management and education, and I was a professional naturalist for 33 years for a Three Rivers Park District in the Twin Cities. Before that, I worked in California and Wisconsin. So that's been my great love, is to be in the outdoors and to help people get excited about it. Natural resource management was a really good background because it gives you, wildlife, forestry, soils, all of that. And as part of that, I had to take mammalogy. And as it turns out, the professor the technical term would be icky. He was very icky. In his syllabus, he said, pretty girls should take my class because they decorate the classroom.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And he did everything he could to discourage us, but my friend Kathy and I were the only women in class, and she goes, we're not going to let him get away with that. And I was sort of like, oh, okay. But we did really well, and I owe it to him, my knowledge of skulls, because I really did end up doing well in the class. Anyway, how many people have ever found a bone or a skull in the woods? Anybody? Yeah. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Especially if you have kids with you. People are either really fascinated by skulls or really repulsed by skulls, or a little bit of both. But I find them very fascinating, and there's lots of little clues we can do to identify them. Were you able to identify the skulls that you found? You know what they were? Remember what it was?
Moose.
A moose. Oh, of course, that would be hard to miss, wouldn't it? Well, what I'm going to do today is I have this little PowerPoint to point out some things. And then I'm going to show you how I would examine a skull and tell you what one of those is. And then I'm just going to turn you loose, and you can grab a skull, look at it, see what you think about it. The carnivores and omnivores have pictures on this table, and the herbivores or plant eaters have pictures on that table. So why don't we does anyone have any questions before we get started? Okay, let's get started. All right. Well, finding a skull in the woods is pretty cool. And being able to tell what it is and a little bit about it is great. There's so many shapes and sizes of skulls that there's a lot of questions you can ask about that. And first we're going to look at teeth. The canine teeth, the sharp biting teeth that you see, are really important, there they are, for tearing meat. And so these are going to be the animals that either part-time or full-time eat other animals. A lot of the times the molars are really pointy too. That's not always the case, but that would be a meat eater. These are the molars, and they are for grinding. So the plant eaters have molars too. They're just not pointy like that. These are the incisors. It's not, the Vizsla doesn't really, I think they put a thing up in there. But anyway, the front teeth that we have are for cutting. So even the herbivores can have very sharp incisors, and some of the carnivores have very small incisors because they use their canines and molars more. So then we're going to ask ourselves, what does the animal eat? The plant eaters have very unique features in their skulls. They have incisors, they have molars, but they're missing one. And you can tell which one that is. They don't have, which one are they missing?
Canine.
They don't have canines, right. They don't need them. So instead, the space where the canine is missing is just a space. There's no holes there for teeth, there's no teeth there. And that's true on every herbivore, and that's called a diastema. So they've got that space. So if you have a skull and there's that space, even if some of the teeth have fallen out, you can tell that was a plant eater. The meat eaters obviously have those canine teeth that are very sharp. And again, if their tooth has fallen out, you've got a hole there. And as I pointed out, sharp pointing molars most of the time. So you'll be able to tell the carnivores pretty easily. The omnivores, like us, are a little hard to differentiate because they eat plants and meat. And they have all all three kinds of teeth, as we do too. So for our purposes, I'm going to lump them together with the carnivores because it's a little hard to tell them difference just from the skull itself. So an omnivore, and you can see some of these have pretty sharp molars, they will eat plants and meat. Then you've got another group called the insectivores. And these are very primitive teeth. A lot of times they're all the same size, very sharp for grabbing onto insects. And the long, slender skulls usually. And it's really interesting because the shrews, like the top one, have teeth that are stained with iron deposits. And so they've got iron in their teeth. And so you can always tell if you see red teeth, you probably found a shrew skull. There's a bat and a mole. Notice the eye sockets. Are they large or are they really small? Does this animal depend on its sight? If they're pointing to the side, we used to tell the kids, eyes on the side, run and hide, because that is prey. Why? Because their vision has this large field that can see movement to the side. So they're really good at seeing a predator trying to sneak up on them. They don't have it right in front and they don't have it in back, but they can really do well moving their heads around and looking for movement to the side. So they have independent sight fields for each eye. Now, most rodents have their eyes rotated to the front of the skeleton. Anybody guess why that is? Here's why it is. Because a lot of their predators are hawks. And so they have to be able to see up to make sure that they can see that movement. It doesn't always work, but they have that great adaptation. How big are they? If they're really large, they probably depend on their sight quite a bit. Also, are they facing the front? If they're facing the front, made to hunt. These are predators because they have binocular vision like we do. So they have a very good depth of field and overlapping sight fields, that will allow them to hone in on a prey animal and be very accurate. Notice the nasal cavity too. It's got these lacy bones in it, and if it's long, that animal probably depends pretty heavily on smell, especially if it's long. If they have a long nose, most likely they're depending quite a bit on the smell. But that's not always the case. This animal, you know, is a pet, can be a pet, or it's a bobcat, or it's a lynx, or it's a mountain lion. They have a very short nose. If you've ever had a cat and you've seen them do this, they open their mouth, it's really scary, but it's called phlegming. And they have a Jacobson's organ in their roof of their mouth like a snake does that will allow them to discern smells. So the cat family has a special way, even though they have a short nose. The other thing that's really cool is an animal that has its nose up high and its eye sockets up high probably exists in water. And so it's swimming and it can stay out of the water. That's another thing to look for. If it's heavy and thick, it's probably for very good muscle attachments. And this heavy, thick skull is obviously a beaver, and they have to have very strong muscles to be able to chew. And so this heavy, thick skull is for that. Wolverines also have a very heavy, thick skull, so do bears. The shape of the skull is interesting too. If it's aerodynamic like this and it's pushed to the side, it's easier for them to swim. The top one, they have very sharp teeth too for grabbing fish. The top one does not live in Minnesota. It's a seal. The bottom one does. It's an otter. So it's a whole nother adaptation they have in the shape. There's also something with kids that like to call the shark fin. If you find a skull with this sharp crest called the sagittal crest, it means that the jaws are very strong. So if it sticks up like that, like a shark fin, that means the animal really has a powerful jaw. We used to joke on Labrador Retrievers that they're called the smart bump. But it's really because they have somewhat of a sagittal crest for jaw strength. Also, the arch there, that you could just call the cheek arch, is for attaching jaw muscles as well. So if it's really wide, that animal probably has a pretty powerful jaw. The chewing muscles are attached to that. So these animals have a very sharp bite. Weasels, mink, wolverine, all of the same family. They'll have the same general shape. And you know from the sagittal crest and other things about it with the cheek bones there, that they really have a powerful bite. The other thing to remember, and I don't think this is a problem for you, but it is for kids, is that the skull itself is covered with muscle and skin and fur. So it's going to be smaller than you might think it would be for an animal. It also might be a young animal. So when you get a skull, we look at what does it eat? What do we think it eats? We look at where are the eyes placed, to the side or to the front. We look at, does it have a sagittal crest? Does it depend on smell a lot? Not only the shape, but what, does it have canines? Does it have, sharp molars? This happens to be a raccoon, which is an omnivore. That, by the way, is the most common skull to find in the Twin Cities area. I don't think that's true at all up here. And then you have large eyes, like the cat family, and this happens to be a monkey. That really is nocturnal. So that's another clue you can look for. The other thing, when we're talking about the dog family now, how do you tell a dog from a wolf or a coyote? They have long noses, they have canines, all of that. But a dog has what's called a stop. So that's like a forehead. Most dogs have a stop. Probably not cowies. But most dogs, you're going to see that in the skull, and that's your clue that it's a dog. The other kind of technical thing is these little holes down below the teeth are foramen, and they are for nerves. On a coyote, they're even with the canines. On a dog, they're lower than the canines. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. Here's some other clues. A skunk has square molars. A muskrat or a vole, and they're related, have zigzag molars, like that. And this animal is not a rodent. Rodents have 2 incisors or front teeth. This animal has 4. It's got an extra set behind the incisors that, behind the 2 incisors that are called pivot teeth. They don't cut, they're just there for strength. And that's a rabbit or a hare. So if you see holes for those 2 extra teeth, even if they've fallen out, you know you've got a rabbit or a hare, and they are not rodents. So in terms of cleaning skulls, you probably don't really, perhaps are not interested in this. You don't want to do that in the bathroom sink. That's really not a good idea. Some people just boil them. I had to do that in college. I had to boil my skulls that I tracked for mammalogy, and let me tell you, the other girls in the dorm were not a fan, even though I had my windows open. A lot of people might use hydrogen peroxide or bugs to eat the skulls. I prefer the cage of death. If I have a lovely animal head that I want to turn into a skull or get the skull from, I'll put it in a cage and stake it out outside and let the bugs eat it. And that's the easiest way to do it. So, now, it's time, let me tell you about this guy here. I saw this animal dead at the bottom of a cliff in Canada. And I went back to that place for 6 summers. And every summer, I'd hike to the bottom of that cliff and see. There are no rodents on this island at all. There are no mice, there are no voles, nothing to chew the bones. So after a while, I saw that most of the skin was off the 6th summer, excuse me. And so I took it home and cleaned up what was left of it. And here's what I got. Now you notice most of the teeth are missing, but it has this space, right? So it's a plant eater, definitely. And with these hooved plant eaters, they have incisors on the bottom, but not the top. Deer, moose, they have a pad on the top, but there's no incisors up there. So does anybody have any guess with what this animal is? It used to be here and it's not anymore.
Caribou?
The woodland caribou, right? Right, so, and on these islands, only the males have antlers, even though other places, both males and females can, but they don't have enough minerals there, so only the males have the antlers. So that's an animal that used to be here. So, as I look, the eyes are on the side. They're pretty large, and caribou have like bugging out eyes, so they can really see movement. So this eyes to the side, run and hide its prey. And what I'd like you to do now, I went through that. Are there any questions about the PowerPoint, first of all?
Why would a rabbit have two sets of front teeth?
It's a good question. The most relevant theory is it's just for strength, because those teeth don't serve any function, except, to back up the incisors. Well, and the other thing is, for a plant eater to have incisors, and you probably already know this, like a beaver, get the beaver, they have to constantly chew. That's why you see them chewing on big trees, and they're not going to use that tree, because they have to wear these down or they'll grow right back into their skull and they'll die. So they need, this enamel on the front is longer than on the inside, like a chisel. And that's the other reason they chew. They don't grow, but they make it very sharp. You don't ever want to get bit by a beaver. So, and heavy muscle attachments, the eyes are facing forward on this one because up in the water, again, the eyes and the nose are high. So what I'd like us to do, I have my skulls over there, go ahead and grab one and see what you can discover about it, and then put it on the picture you think it is, and then we'll go over it. There's no grade, so just do some exploring. This is for exploring. I'll go ahead and put this on the beaver. So the herbivores are over here and the carnivores are over there. You might be surprised. The same item, the same skull. I'm not sure those go together, but they're the same animal. They're the same animal. They might.
See the space here for herbivore?
Yeah. The diastema. I have a friend that has that in between his front teeth. It's called the diastema for people. Oh, really? You ever know anybody that has that gap?
Each gonna travel.
We got a dog family and a cat family. Yeah, look at that sagittal crest, the shark fin. Powerful jaws on that animal. Cool. Now, if somebody already has a skull on the picture and you think yours is that, put it there anyway.
So this gap means what?
Oh, yes, but there's a hole there.
Okay,
So
and
they're
this
word
whole,
teeth.
okay, they're
Yes.
word teeth.
Yes, word teeth as well as here.
I would say that this is a swimmer.
It can be,
I know.
they can swim, but they don't spend all their time in the water or forest anymore, but they do swim.
So we can't get to mine, can we cut two pictures?
Just make a wild guess.
Just put your pictures like this.
Yeah, there you go. Do that. That's a large animal too.
Yeah.
3 of those come to our group.
That is so neat. I love seeing fishes, and they're very rare to see.
Okay, so mine is a swimmer, right?
Yes, it spends quite a bit of time in the water, but not exclusively.
I mean, I think I've got a water.
Now remember, it has muscle, skin, and hair over the skull, so think about sizes too.
It's kind of
I'm
water.
really stunned because I don't see anything here that's big enough. That isn't a gray fox or a red fox. It's not a lynx because it's a cat and it's not flat.
There is one here that's big enough.
Yeah, him,
Yeah,
that's really a,
that's really a bear.
Wow.
There you go. But small eyes too,
Yeah.
smaller eyes are.
yeah.
Okay, I can't decide which one. Can you give me a clue?
Think about size.
It's probably this one. This one.
Okay,
I think it's too big for that.
let's
Yeah.
get somebody
It's got
out
8
here.
of those one. Okay, it's got that. It's got that.
Anybody want to try anything else here? Grab another one. Who had the wolf you couldn't decide? Was that you?
Yeah.
Compare them and see what you control. Same thing. Same thing. Well, pick one size, okay. And that's not even a mammal. I bet you know which one that is.
Hey, Marcia.
Hey, Marcia.
How are you?
Is this picture out there?
I think there is. I'm not sure where I put that one.
I'll see you back there.
See the stop?
Yes, yes.
This must be a
That's gonna be the title.
Yay, you got it right. Yay.
Oh, they coached me again, eh?
Well, it helps to get some comparison. Yes. And these are all cats. And I have to tell you, this one was a really, really, really big house cat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it must have been a Maine Coon. I didn't know that cat. The cat family has a really short nose and that's a long nose. Also, look at the teeth, they're really specialized. Those are odd, right?
Is this a bat?
No, it's a snapping turtle.
Oh, really?
Actually,
I didn't know, because she said it was an animal.
Yeah, well, that's a mammal.
That's just said it wouldn't be a bat then, because you said it was
A snapping turtle, oh my gosh. It's a really odd skull, isn't it?
That is.
That was a gift.
It's a cool one, but it is odd.
So, let's see, how about these? Those are skulls. Anybody remember what the zigzag teeth was?
I'm a vegetarian.
insect,
Zigzag molars?
insects.
Yeah, they like insects.
From the,
The
this?
space,
The rodent?
those molars, they use their shirt, the beaver.
Oh, it's a plant eater, what am I doing?
Like she has one. Is that a beaver? Is that a beaver there? Is it chipmunk or squirrel? The one you just.
It was muskrat.
Muskrat.
So you can go like this.
Square molars.
Meat eater? Meat eater?
You missed the hard one.
Have you looked at these muskrats?
Fantastic.
It's not a problem, but it should
I
have
couldn't hear
full
where,
structure.
did I hear you guys are on Birch? Or on Birch, okay.
Because that animal, that
We're on Poplar. Not very far from Birch. And we're on that end, we're on Voyager's Point, so.
We're just out gambling and popping.
Yeah.
Pretty late.
Should we gather around a little bit here?
Sure.
Okay. This is a raccoon. Okay, it's got, you can't, you know, there's no teeth, but you can see the holes where the teeth were, so clearly they're canines. The square molars here are herbivore?
Herbivore.
No, it's a, because the canines were there.
Oh, canines were
It's
there.
square, anyone remember who had square molars?
raccoon.
Skunk.
Skunk
Oh,
and
that's
square
right.
molars.
This one, you know, it's in the water, eyes are high, nose is high. It's clearly, you know, the canines used to be there, right?
Yeah.
So this animal is a swimmer,
An otter?
and it's an otter.
Oh,
Yeah. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, this is right, this is a fisher. And what's interesting is this is the same animal. This is an older male. Look at that crest.
Wow.
Look at that crest.
Is there another fox
So,
skull? Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Look
this,
at
I'm
that.
sorry, not raccoon, these are both fisher.
Oh,
But that's an old male, isn't that cool?
that's so interesting.
Let's see, what should we do next? Okay, gray fox. No, sorry, where am I? Red fox, this is a gray fox. Same but different,
Yeah.
just little subtle differences. Gray foxes on average are a little smaller. This is a dog, you see the stop there? I didn't know that dog, by the way. I have dogs. This is an insectivore, if we can pass that around, and that's a bat. That's a little brown bat.
Oh my.
Okay,
God.
where am I? Let's go to the cats here. These three are all the cat family. See the similarities? Huge eyes, facing front, big canines. So this one is a bobcat, this one is a lynx, and this one is a really, really, really big house cat. That
Wow.
had to be a Maine Coon, because look at, compared to the bobcat.
Yeah.
It's a big cat.
That's a big cat.
It's a big cat. Let's see, what do we have left here? Okay, the river, oh, I had two river otters, sorry about that. But this is related to the fisher, see the same shape? Big cheekbones here, so powerful jaws, and it is a pine marten. So these two are, oh, I'm sorry. These two are related. Let's see, what else do we have here? That's a mink, yes. This is a bear. And this is another, what does it look like to us? It's out here. It's water, eyes up, nose up.
Beaver?
Anybody see it? Yeah, it's another otter, right. So we're left with the only one that's not a Minnesota animal. Look at the teeth for holding fish. Yeah, big eyes,
Seal.
big eyes. This is a seal. Female sea lion to be
Oh,
exact.
sea
And that was a
lion.
gift.
So they have
I did not know that, sea lion. Let's go over here. Over here, we have the herbivores. You probably all, I think this is probably the most common kind of skull to find in Cook County, the white-tailed deer. This is another white-tailed deer, just to show you, you can have part of a skull and still know what it is. You can see there was a gap there because part of the nose has been eaten up, right? Same kind of teeth. So once you get to kind of look at the shape of a skull, you know that's a white-tailed deer. It's just not complete. Then we have this, which does not have a gap. It's got canines. So is it a plant eater? No. It's a fox. It's a fox, which is actually, can you put that over there? Sure. More of an omnivore. So here we have the muskrat with zigzag, see the zigzag molars here? So a vole would be the same way as that. Same as the beaver, enamel that's chewed to make a really sharp cutting edge, right? And then we have these two, which are both hares. This is a black-tailed jackrabbit, and this is a snowshoe hare. I actually found this hare dead, but all the teeth had fallen out and I couldn't find them. But even though it doesn't have teeth, I can tell. See the diastema here, the space? Yeah. And I can tell it had incisors at one time. And I can even tell where the extra teeth were. It's still got one in there.
Extra teeth.
It's got called pivot teeth, which proves that they're not a rodent, because rodents have 2 upper incisors and rabbits have 4, but they don't have any function.
Oh,
They're just for strength.
kind of backup.
Yeah. Well, because they don't have an animal, so.
They don't have an animal.
So anyway, those are the skulls. You did a great job. Anybody have any questions or anything? No?
Is there a name for the science of skulls, like skullology or something?
That's as good as any.
Is there an official name?
I suppose there might be. I should look that up.
So how are you internationally recognized?
I have no idea. They just made that up.
You went up to
Someone
Canada.
from Canada
You went up to
knows it.
Canada and got the.
I did. I got the caribou from Canada.
There you go. There you go.
No, not internationally, no at all.
So-
I also like water bugs, so that's another interest of mine.
Oh, that'd be fun for next year.
So if we found something interesting that we don't think you have, which is probably impossible, take a picture of it and send it to you.
Yeah,
What would you like us to
absolutely.
do?
Just drop it off.
Drop it off, drop
I know
off
where
the
I know
head.
where she lives.
Bring it to church.
Yeah, I'll bring it.
I'll put it in the cage
We
of
have
death.
that
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really
What a
fun.
nice surprise.
Did you get that when you were up sailing?
On the islands, yeah. Well, I told them the story. One summer we were kayaking around and we decided to go on a caribou trail and there was a cliff. And I looked down and there was a dead caribou, so I scrambled down and it still had the skin and everything because there aren't any rodents on that island, only insects.
So that takes a long time.
So I went back for 6 summers, and the 6th summer, the ants had
Cleaned it off
cleaned it
enough?
up. And the reason I know it's ants is, I was there one summer, we're kayaking, and there's a bunch of bones on the shore. Of course, you know me, bones, right? So I get out of my kayak and we're looking, and all of a sudden, my friend Paula goes, "Run!" And all these ants came boiling out that they had built their nest right under the dead caribou. So we got out of there, because they came right to the shore. They were gonna get us.
Gary had that experience when we were kids
Yeah.
once. He and his friend, all of a sudden the ground was moving and it was all the ticks that were leaving the moose.
Oh,
They were crawling up their
oh, that's
legs.
even creepier. No, no,
Yeah, they
no,
ran
no.
real fast to
I'll
get
take
the
ants over ticks.
I'll take ants over ticks.
Thank you again so much, everybody.
Thank you, Karen, very, very much.
You want to see the PowerPoint?
No, I don't want to, yes, of course I do.
Thank you.
Oh.